You're a broke loser with cheap ring.
Alexie Palmer laughed in his face when he pulled out that cheap ring, called him a broke loser who'd never amount to anything. 2 months later, Ethan Harrington walked into her office as the new owner, and the diamond on her little sister Michelle's finger cost more than Alexie would make in 10 years. If you love stories about karma, revenge, and lessons learned the hard way, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this plays out. Alexie Palmer thought she had it all figured out. At 28, she was climbing the corporate ladder at Sterling Media Group, dating men who drove luxury cars, living in a trendy downtown apartment she could barely afford, and absolutely certain she deserved better than a simple proposal in a coffee shop, eh? She was wrong about everything. Spectacularly, devastatingly wrong. What Alexie didn't know that Tuesday afternoon was that the man nervously holding that cheap ring was heir to a billion-dollar empire. That his old Honda was a choice, not a necessity. That his roommate situation was temporary by design. That everything she judged him for was a test, and she'd failed in the most public, humiliating way possible. And her little sister Michelle? She was about to figure out what Alexie never would. That character matters more than carrots. That love isn't measured in price tags. That kindness and authenticity will always triumph over shallow ambition. Now, before we dive into exactly how Alexie's life fell apart, go ahead and hit that like button if you're already Team Michelle and Team Ethan. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever rejected someone for the wrong reasons? Or watched someone throw away something valuable because they couldn't see past the surface? Drop your stories below. I read every single comment. This is the story of how one woman's cruelty became her prison. How 30 seconds of judgment cost Alexie Palmer everything. Her dignity, her family's respect, her career peace, and a man who would have given her the world if she'd just seen past the surface. By the end of this story, you'll understand why Alexie can barely look her own sister in the eye anymore. Why every day at work is a reminder of what she threw away. Why family dinners became her personal torture chamber. And why she'll spend the rest of her life asking one question. What if I just said yes? And listen, if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who's focused on all the wrong things in relationships, or someone who's learning the hard way that materialism doesn't equal happiness, share this video with them. Sometimes the best lessons come from watching other people's mistakes. All right, let's go back to where it all started. To a Tuesday afternoon in late September. To a coffee shop in Manhattan. To the moment Alexie Palmer made the biggest mistake of her life. Because what she didn't know was that her little sister Michelle was sitting at the very next table watching everything unfold. The cafe was called Common Grounds, one of those trendy spots with exposed brick, mismatched vintage furniture, and a chalkboard menu featuring $12 lattes. It was busy that Tuesday afternoon, filled with the usual mix of remote workers typing furiously on laptops, students with highlighters and textbooks spread across tables, and people killing time between appointments. Ethan Harrington had chosen a corner table deliberately, away from the main flow of traffic, but not so isolated that it would seem suspiciously romantic. He'd been planning this proposal for 3 weeks, ever since he'd decided that 8 months was long enough to know what he wanted. Long enough to be sure. Or so he thought. He'd rehearsed the words in his mirror that morning, practiced opening the ring box smoothly, even timed himself to make sure he wouldn't ramble. The ring itself, his grandmother's engagement ring, the same one his father had proposed with, the same one that had sealed a 50-year marriage built on love and partnership and choosing each other every single day, sat in a small velvet box in his jacket pocket. The diamond was modest by modern standards. Maybe half a carat, in a simple vintage setting that had belonged to his great-grandmother, but it represented something more valuable than size. Legacy, commitment, family. It represented the kind of love that lasted. Ethan checked his watch. 3:17 p.m. Alexie was supposed to be there at 3 o'clock. This wasn't unusual. Alexie was always late. She said it was because she was important, busy, in demand. Ethan had learned to build in a buffer time. At 3:22 p.m., Alexie Palmer swept through the cafe door like she owned the place. She was beautiful. There was no denying that. 5'7" with deep brown skin that glowed even in the cafe's dim lighting, professionally straightened hair that fell past her shoulders, wearing a designer work dress that she'd mentioned cost half a paycheck. Her bag, a Michael Kors tote she'd saved 3 months to buy, hit the table with a deliberate thud that announced her arrival. She was already scrolling through Instagram before she sat down, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the screen as she double-tapped photos of influencers in Santorini, Dubai, the Maldives, all the places she told Ethan she deserved to visit. "Sorry I'm late," she said without looking up. "Meeting ran over. You know how it is." Ethan did know. Alexie's meetings always ran over. Her friends always needed her. Her schedule was always packed. In 8 months of dating, he'd learned that he ranked somewhere below her Thursday evening yoga class, but above her monthly pedicure appointments. "It's okay," Ethan said, his hand moving unconsciously to the ring box in his pocket. "I ordered you a latte. Oat milk, extra shot, vanilla. Thanks." She still hadn't looked at him. Some reality TV star was announcing a new product line and Alexie was reading every comment. Ethan's throat felt dry. This wasn't how he'd imagined this moment. But then again, when was the last time he and Alexie had been truly present with each other? When had they last had a conversation that wasn't interrupted by her phone? He pushed the thought away. Everyone was distracted these days. It didn't mean anything. "Alexie, we've been together for 8 months now, Is this about moving in together again?" She finally looked up, but her expression was more annoyed than interested. "Because I already told you, my apartment is perfect. It's in the ideal location, close to all the good restaurants and boutiques. Your place is fine, but it's not exactly where I'm trying to be, you know? And honestly, the roommate thing would be weird for me." Ethan felt the first flicker of doubt. His apartment was temporary, a deliberate choice while he completed his father's required 2-year normal job experience before taking over Harrington Industries. The roommate, Todd, was actually his childhood best friend who'd agreed to help maintain the illusion. But Alexie had never asked why an IT professional would choose to live that way. She'd just assumed it was all he could afford and found it lacking. "Actually," Ethan pressed forward, "I was hoping we could talk about something more permanent." That got her attention. Alexie's eyes lifted from her phone fully now, curious. Her mind was already racing through possibilities. Had he gotten a promotion? Finally moved out of that depressing apartment? Upgraded from the ancient Honda he insisted on driving despite her embarrassment? Maybe his mysterious family business he rarely talked about was finally going to pan out? When Ethan pulled out the small velvet ring box, Alexie's eyes widened, but not with the joy or surprise he'd hoped for. With something closer to horror. The box itself was vintage, a little worn. And when Ethan opened it, revealing the ring inside, Alexie's expression shifted from horror to something worse, disappointment laced with disbelief. The diamond was small, smaller than any of the engagement rings she followed on Instagram, where influencers showed off 3-carat stones in elaborate settings. The band was gold but simple, old-fashioned. Nothing like the trendy designs she'd bookmarked on her secret wedding Pinterest board. It was exactly the kind of ring a man with potential but no current prospects would offer. The kind that screamed, "I'm doing my best," instead of "I'm successful." The kind that would make her friends ask uncomfortable questions instead of squealing with envy. Alexie actually laughed. Not a small, nervous giggle. Not a laugh of joy or surprise, but a full, incredulous laugh that came from somewhere deep and cruel. A laugh loud enough that heads turned at nearby tables. A laugh that echoed in the suddenly quiet cafe. "Ethan, are you serious right now?" Ethan froze. Git. The box still open between them, held out like an offering that was being rejected before he could even make it. The ring caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the window. The stone was actually quite beautiful in the light, sparkling with all the memories of the marriage it had symbolized. But Alexie didn't notice. She only saw what it wasn't. Yeah, Ethan managed. "Alexie, I love you. I want to spend my life with this?" She gestured at the ring like it was personally offensive, like he'd presented her with a plastic toy from a vending machine. Ethan, I don't know what you think I'm worth, but it's certainly more than whatever clearance rack you found this on. Is this from one of those online discount jewelers? Did you finance it? Please tell me you didn't go into debt for this. The cafe had gone quieter now. Conversations were dropping off as people tuned into the drama unfolding at the corner table. Baristas slowed their work. Students looked up from their books. Everyone was watching a proposal die in real time. Ethan's voice dropped, tight with hurt and confusion and the first stirrings of something that might have been anger. It was my grandmother's ring. I had it reset for you. The stone has been in my family for 3 generations. My great-grandmother wore it for 62 years. My grandmother wore it for 50. It's not about the size, it's about the legacy. Your grandmother's? Alexie's laugh cut through his explanation like a knife. So not only is it cheap, it's used? Ethan, oh my God, I need you to be realistic here. You work in IT support making what, $60,000 a year? 70 if you're lucky? You drive a 2008 Honda Civic with a dent in the back bumper. You live with a roommate named Todd in an apartment that doesn't even have central air conditioning. You shop at Target. Your watch is from Fossil, not even a real luxury brand. She was on a roll now, her voice getting louder, her judgment becoming a public performance. What exactly made you think you were ready to propose to someone like me? To someone with standards and ambitions and an actual future? Someone like you? Ethan repeated quietly, dangerously. Someone who's going somewhere in life. Alexie was standing now, her voice carrying across the entire cafe. I'm not going to tie myself to a broke loser who'll never amount to anything. I'm sorry, Ethan, but you're not on my level. You're a nice guy. And I'm sure you'll find someone perfectly adequate for your perfectly adequate life. But that someone isn't me. She grabbed her designer bag, the one that cost more than the ring she was rejecting. Lose my number, okay? This is embarrassing for both of us. I have a reputation to maintain, and being seen with someone who thinks a hand-me-down ring is an acceptable proposal is not the look I'm going for. Alexie walked out of Common Grounds without looking back. She didn't see the way Ethan's hands trembled as he slowly closed the ring box. Didn't see the red creeping up his neck, the humiliation and heartbreak warring on his face. Didn't notice the sympathetic looks from other customers, or the young barista who looked like she wanted to chase after Alexie and give her a piece of her mind. And she definitely didn't see the woman sitting at the very next table. A younger woman with kind eyes, natural curls framing her face in a halo, wearing simple jeans and a college sweatshirt with teaching certification study materials spread across her table, staring after her with an expression of absolute horror and disbelief. Michelle Palmer had been studying at Common Grounds all afternoon. It was her favorite spot, quiet enough to concentrate, close to her apartment, with the best chai latte in the city. She'd witnessed the entire proposal, every cruel word, every dismissive gesture, every moment of her older sister destroying what looked like a genuinely good man for no reason except pride, materialism, and a complete absence of human compassion. Michelle looked at the man still sitting at the table, Ted, staring at the closed ring box in his hands like he couldn't quite process what had just happened, like he was replaying the last 5 minutes trying to figure out where he'd gone wrong. She should mind her own business. This was between them. It wasn't her place to get involved. But something about the absolute devastation on his face, the way his shoulders had hunched, the way he kept opening and closing the ring box like maybe if he did it enough times the outcome would change. Something about the casual cruelty in her sister's voice made Michelle's stomach turn. Before she could second-guess herself, Michelle stood up, walked over to his table, cleared her throat softly. "Excuse me?" Ethan looked up, surprised to find someone addressing him. His eyes were red-rimmed but dry. He had the look of someone in shock, still processing pain that hadn't fully hit yet. "I'm so sorry," Michelle said, her voice gentle. "I couldn't help but overhear, and I just wanted to say, that was awful. You deserved so much better than that. That was cruel and unnecessary, and you seem like a genuinely good person who just had his heart broken in the worst possible way." Ethan stared at her for a long moment, like he couldn't quite believe someone was showing him kindness after what had just happened. "You don't need to apologize for a stranger's behavior," he said quietly, his voice rough. "She's not a stranger," Michelle admitted. feeling shame burn through her chest. She's my sister, and I'm absolutely mortified. That was inexcusable. You put yourself out there, you offered her something meaningful, and she treated you like you were nothing. I'm so sorry. Ethan's eyes widened. You're Alexie's sister? Unfortunately, in this moment, yes. Michelle Palmer. She extended her hand, half expecting him to refuse it. But Ethan shook it. His grip was warm and steady despite everything he'd just been through. Ethan Harrington. And thank you for the kindness. I think I needed to hear that it wasn't completely deserved. It wasn't deserved at all, Michelle said firmly, meaning every word. For what it's worth, that ring is beautiful. The fact that it has family history makes it even more special. Anyone who can't see the thought and love and legacy behind it doesn't deserve to wear it. Ethan looked down at the box in his hands, opened it one more time. The diamond caught the light, sparkling stubbornly despite its rejection. My grandmother wore this ring for 50 years, he said softly. She and my grandfather built a life together from nothing. They worked side by side, supported each other through everything, financial struggles, health scares, the loss of a child. This ring survived the Great Depression, 3 wars, and more hardships than I can count. And through it all, she said it was the most valuable thing she owned. Not because of what it cost, but because of what it represented. Michelle felt tears prick her eyes. That's beautiful. I thought it would be enough, Ethan continued, and now his voice cracked. I thought if I found someone who could love me for me, not for what I could give them or what I represented, but just for who I am as a person, that this ring would be perfect. That it would mean something. It does mean something, Michelle said. To the right person, it means everything. They stood there for a moment in the afternoon light, stranger and stranger connected by one woman's cruelty and another's compassion. Can I buy you a coffee? Michelle asked impulsively. You shouldn't be alone right now, and I'd really like to make up for my sister's behavior, even though I know I can't really. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her for the first time, saw the genuine kindness in her eyes, the empathy in her expression, the authenticity that radiated from her like light. And he smiled. It was small and sad and didn't quite reach his eyes, but it was real. I'd like that, he said. Thank you, Michelle. They talked for 45 minutes, about nothing and everything. About Michelle's teaching certification exam and her 5th graders and the joy of watching kids discover they love reading. About Ethan's complicated feelings about family expectations and the difference between who we are and who people expect us to be. Michelle never asked what he did for a living beyond something in business. Never asked about his financial situation or his prospects or his 5-year plan. She asked about his favorite book, East of Eden by Steinbeck. His biggest fear, becoming the kind of person who values things over people. And what made him laugh? Terrible dad jokes, the worse the better. When Michelle finally had to leave to get back to studying, they exchanged numbers. Just as friends, Michelle clarified. I know you're going through something right now, but if you ever want to talk, or need someone to remind you that you're not actually a broke loser, I'm here. Thank you, Ethan said. Really, you have no idea how much this meant. After Michelle left, Ethan sat alone for a while longer, turning the ring box over in his hands. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Dad, it's Ethan. On the other end, Richard Harrington, founder and chairman of Harrington Industries, one of the largest private equity firms on the East Coast, with a portfolio worth over $3 billion, straightened in his chair. Son, everything all right? I'm ready, Ethan said, looking at the ring box one last time before slipping it back into his pocket. The 2 years are up next month anyway, but I don't want to wait anymore. I'm ready to stop pretending. I'm ready to come back to the company and take the CEO position. Richard was quiet for a moment. The 2-year rule had been his idea. Work a normal job, live on a normal salary, experience life as a regular person before inheriting extraordinary wealth and power. It was meant to build character, empathy, humility. It had clearly worked, perhaps too well. What happened? Richard asked gently. I proposed to someone who saw an IT support specialist with an old car and a modest ring, and she rejected me. Publicly. Cruelly. And Dad? I'm grateful. Because if she'd said yes, I would have spent my life with someone who only loved what I could give her, not who I actually am. Richard felt pride swell in his chest. When can you start? Monday, Ethan said. And Dad? There's a company I want to acquire. Sterling Media Group, I see. Put it on the list. Any particular reason? Ethan's expression was unreadable. Call it an investment in personal growth. Theirs and mine. Can you believe that? Alexie just humiliated a billionaire heir and has no idea what's coming. But real quick, if you're enjoying this story and you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button right now. I post new stories about karma and revenge 3 times a week, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this one. The takeover is about to get brutal. Okay, back to the story. Across the city, Alexie Palmer arrived home feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She immediately FaceTimed her best friends, Jasmine and Tori, the only people whose opinions mattered almost as much as her own. Girl, you will not believe what just happened, Alexie said, already laughing as she recounted the proposal. She acted it out dramatically, mimicking Ethan's nervous demeanor, the small ring, the ridiculous family history speech. He seriously thought you'd say yes to his grandmother's ring? Jasmine shrieked. Alexie, I'm dying. That's so embarrassing for him. Used jewelry, Tori added. That's not romantic, that's cheap. You absolutely dodged a bullet, babe. Right? Alexie felt validated, vindicated. Like I have standards. I'm not going to settle for someone who can't even afford to buy a proper engagement ring. What's next? A wedding at the VFW hall? A honeymoon at his parents' timeshare? They laughed together, their voices overlapping in agreement and support and shared judgment of poor, delusional Ethan Harrington who'd thought he was good enough for Alexie Palmer. What none of them knew, what Alexie couldn't have imagined even in her worst nightmare, was that in 6 weeks, Ethan Harrington would walk into Sterling Media Group as the new owner. That he would become her boss. That her entire career would rest in the hands of the broke loser she'd just humiliated. And that her little sister Michelle, sweet, naive Michelle, who'd never cared about money or status or any of the things that mattered, would fall in love with him. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, we need to talk about what happened in those 6 weeks between the proposal and the takeover. We need to talk about how Ethan and Michelle went from strangers in a coffee shop to something that would shatter Alexie's world into 1,000 irreparable pieces. 3 days after the proposal disaster, Michelle found herself back at Common Grounds. She told herself it was because she had more studying to do, because the chai latte was unmatched, because her apartment was too quiet. She didn't admit, even to herself, that she was hoping to see Ethan Harrington again. She wanted to know if he was okay. Wanted to make sure the devastation she'd seen in his eyes had faded a little. Wanted to apologize again for her sister's cruelty, even though it wasn't her responsibility. At 2:30 p.m., Ethan walked in. He looked different somehow. The defeated slump in his shoulders was gone, replaced by something steadier, more certain. He ordered a black coffee and a muffin, and when he turned around and saw Michelle sitting in the same corner booth, his face broke into a genuine smile. Michelle Palmer, he said, approaching her table, Satan. We meet again. Ethan Harrington, she responded, matching his tone. How are you doing, really? Honestly, better than I expected. He gestured to the empty seat across from her. Mind if I join you? Please do. They fell into conversation as easily as breathing. Michelle told him about her students, about Marcus, who'd just discovered he loved poetry, about Aisha, who was reading 3 grades above her level, about the small miracles that happened every day in her classroom when kids who'd been told they couldn't learn discovered that they absolutely could. Ethan's eyes lit up. I actually volunteer with an adult literacy program on Saturday mornings. There's a community center in Harlem, Riverside Learning Center. We help adults working toward their GED. Watching someone read their first full sentence or write their own name for the first time, there's nothing else like it. You volunteer? Michelle looks surprised. That's incredible. Most people our age are too busy with their own lives. Time is a choice, Ethan said simply. We make time for what matters to us, and literacy matters, education matters, giving people the tools to change their own lives matters. They talked for 2 hours that day. about books and education and the difference between teaching and learning, about Ethan's complicated feelings about family expectations. He mentioned coming from a business family but kept the details vague, and Michelle didn't push. About Michelle's dreams of maybe writing children's books someday, combining her love of teaching with storytelling. "You should do it," Ethan said firmly. "The world needs more teachers who are also artists, people who understand that education is about imagination as much as information." "Maybe," Michelle said shyly, "someday." "Why not now?" "Because it's impractical? Because I have student loans and rent and a very real need to eat food?" Ethan laughed, a real laugh, warm and genuine. "Fair point, but don't let practical kill possible. That's the mistake too many people make." When they finally parted ways, they'd exchanged numbers again. This time, it felt less like a courtesy and more like the beginning of something. Over the next 4 weeks, coffee became a routine. Twice a week turned into 3 times, then 4. Then they were texting daily, sharing funny classroom stories, book recommendations, terrible puns that made them both groan and laugh simultaneously. Michelle didn't tell Alexie. She told herself it was because Alexie wouldn't care, because her sister had made it abundantly clear that Ethan meant nothing to her, because there was no reason to mention a new friendship to someone who wouldn't be interested. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was protecting something fragile and new, something that felt important in a way she couldn't quite name yet. In the 5th week, Ethan invited Michelle to volunteer with him at Riverside Learning Center. "You don't have to," he said quickly, "but I thought you might enjoy it, and the center could use someone with actual teaching credentials. Right now, it's mostly well-meaning volunteers who have no idea what they're doing." Michelle agreed immediately. That Saturday morning, she met Ethan at a community center in Harlem, a beautiful old building with high ceilings and worn hardwood floors that had served the neighborhood for 70 years. She watched Ethan work with a man in his 50s who was learning to read for the first time. Watched the patience in Ethan's voice, the encouragement, the way he celebrated every small victory like it was a major triumph. There was no condescension, no pity, just genuine respect and belief. "You're really good at this," Michelle said during a break, genuinely impressed. "I love it," Ethan admitted. "Some people decompress with golf or gym time. This is my therapy. Seeing someone's face when they realize they can do something they thought was impossible? That's better than any stock portfolio gain or business deal." The way he said stock portfolio struck Michelle as slightly odd for an IT support worker, but she dismissed it. Maybe he was into investing as a hobby. After volunteering, they went to lunch at a soul food restaurant Michelle loved in the neighborhood. "Okay, I have to ask," Michelle said over fried chicken and collard greens. "Why IT support? You're clearly passionate about education and literacy and making a difference. Why not pursue that professionally?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "It's complicated. I have family obligations, a path that was sort of laid out for me that I'm expected to follow. The IT job was temporary, a way to experience something normal before taking on bigger responsibilities. But education will always be part of my life, professionally or not." "Family business?" Michelle guessed. "Something like that." "And you don't want to talk about it?" "I will," Ethan promised, looking directly into her eyes. "Soon. I'm really enjoying getting to know you without all the complicated context. Is that okay?" Michelle smiled. "That's okay. Everyone deserves to be seen for who they are, not what they come from." "Exactly," Ethan said softly. "Exactly that." On the walk back to the subway, Ethan's hand brushed Michelle's. Neither of them pulled away. By the 6th week, they were having dinner together 3 nights a week, meeting for early morning coffee before work, texting constantly throughout the day. Michelle's roommate Janelle noticed immediately. "Girl, Seki, you're glowing," Janelle said one evening as Michelle got ready for another dinner with Ethan. "And you've mentioned this man approximately 400 times in the past week. When are you going to admit you're dating?" "We're not dating," Michelle protested. "We're friends. He's going through a breakup and I'm just being supportive." "Mm-hmm. And does this friend look at you like you hung the moon?" "He doesn't." "He does," Janelle interrupted. "I saw you two at the coffee shop last week. That man was looking at you like you were the most fascinating person on the planet. And you, my dear Michelle, were looking right back the same way. Michelle felt heat creep up her neck. It's complicated. Because he's my sister's ex. Janelle's eyes widened. Wait, this is the guy Alexie rejected? The proposal guy? Michelle nodded miserably. How long were they together? 8 months. And did Alexie love him? I don't think so. She was always complaining about him. About his car, his apartment, his job. She said he wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't going anywhere. She made it pretty clear he wasn't good enough for her. So she rejected his proposal, humiliated him publicly, and made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him? Yes. Then what's the problem? Janelle asked bluntly. She threw him away like trash, Michelle. You don't get to throw someone away and then claim them when someone else sees their value. But she's my sister, and she'll be fine, Janelle said firmly. But you, my sweet friend, have been single for 3 years because you're waiting for someone who sees you, really sees you, and values kindness and authenticity. And it sounds like you found that. Don't let Alexie's materialism and bad judgment steal your chance at happiness. Michelle wanted to argue, wanted to say it wasn't that simple. But she couldn't, because Janelle was right. That weekend, Ethan took Michelle to Central Park. They walked for hours, talking about everything and nothing. About childhood dreams and adult realities. About the difference between who we want to be and who the world expects us to be. Michelle, I need to tell you something, Ethan said as they sat on a bench overlooking the lake. Okay, Michelle said, suddenly nervous. I Googled you last week, he admitted. I know you're getting your teaching certification this spring. I know you graduated from NYU with honors. I know you volunteer at 3 different community programs. I know you're absolutely brilliant and kind and everything I could ever hope to find in a person. Michelle's heart was racing. Ethan, and I need you to Google me, he continued. Because I haven't been completely honest with you. Not about who I am fundamentally, but about the circumstances of my life. And before this goes any further, you need to know everything. You're scaring me a little, Michelle said. Don't be scared. Just look me up tonight, and then tomorrow. If you still want to see me, let's have dinner. And if you don't, I'll understand. But Michelle, I need you to know, everything between us, everything we've talked about and shared and built over these weeks, that's real. That's me. That's who I actually am underneath all the complicated context. He kissed her forehead gently, then walked away. Michelle sat on that bench for 10 more minutes, her mind racing. Then she pulled out her phone and typed, Ethan Harrington. The results that popped up made her gasp out loud. Articles from Forbes, Business Insider, The Wall Street Journal. Photos of Ethan at charity galas in tuxedos. At business conferences with titans of industry. At the opening of the new Harrington Industries headquarters. Ethan Harrington, 32, takes helm of family empire. Harrington heir returns. New CEO brings fresh vision to billion-dollar firm. The Harrington legacy. 4th generation prepares to lead. Michelle scrolled through article after article, her mind reeling. The IT support job had been real, but it was part of a program his father required. 2 years working a normal job, living on a normal salary, experiencing life outside of extreme wealth before taking over the family business. The old car, the roommate, the modest lifestyle, all intentional, all a test. And Alexie had failed spectacularly. Michelle's phone rang. It was Ethan. Did you Google me? He asked quietly. I did. And I have questions. So many questions. Dinner tomorrow? I'll answer every single one. I promise complete honesty from here on out. Michelle took a deep breath. Okay, tomorrow. But Ethan? Yeah? This doesn't change how I feel about you. The you I've gotten to know over these past weeks, that's the person I care about. The rest is just context. She could hear the smile in his voice. That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. Okay, pause. Drop a comment right now. Team Michelle or Team Alexie? Do you think Michelle was wrong for dating her sister's ex, or did Alexie give up all rights when she publicly humiliated him? I want to hear your thoughts. And while you're commenting, make sure you've hit that like button. It really helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. Now let's see what happens when Michelle learns the truth. The next evening, over dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant in the West Village, Ethan told Michelle everything. About the 2-year rule his father had implemented. About wanting to find someone who loved him for himself, not his last name or bank account. About the proposal to Alexie and the very public, very cruel rejection. I was testing her, Ethan admitted. I knew it. My father knew it. And she failed completely. She never once asked about my family or my background or my actual ambitions. She made assumptions based on surface-level observations and judged me accordingly. And honestly, Michelle, I'm grateful, because it showed me exactly who she was before I made the worst mistake of my life. And us? Michelle asked quietly. Was I a test too? No, Ethan said immediately, reaching across the table for her hand. You were never a test. You approaching me in that cafe? That was pure kindness. Compassion from a stranger who saw someone hurting and chose to help. Everything that's happened since then has been genuine. Me getting to know you. You getting to know me. No agenda, no test, just two people connecting authentically. But you didn't tell me about your family, about who you really are. Because I wanted you to see me first, Ethan said. The me that volunteers on Saturdays and reads Steinbeck and makes terrible puns. The me that exists separately from the empire and the expectations. And you did. You saw me, Michelle, the real me. Just like I saw the real you, the teacher who cares more about her students' success than her own comfort. The woman who apologizes for her sister's cruelty. The person who values character over everything else. Michelle was quiet, processing everything. There's something else you should know, Ethan continued. Harrington Industries just completed the acquisition of Sterling Media Group, the company where Alexie works. As of Monday, I'm her new CEO. Michelle's eyes widened. Oh my God. I'm not doing it for revenge, Ethan said quickly. It was a good investment opportunity. But yes, there's some personal satisfaction in the timing. She judged me as not good enough, and now she'll work for me. But Michelle, I need you to know, I will never use my position to harm her professionally. I'm not vindictive. I'm just living my life, building my company, and hoping that the woman I'm falling for might want to be part of that life. You're falling for me? Michelle whispered. Completely, Ethan said. These past 6 weeks with you have been the most genuine, most real weeks of my entire life. You make me laugh. You challenge me. You see the best in people. You make me want to be better. And yes, Michelle Palmer, I am absolutely falling in love with you. Michelle felt tears prick her eyes. This is going to destroy my relationship with Alexie. I know, and I'm sorry for that. If you decide this is too complicated, if family is more important, I'll understand. I'll step back. We'll stay friends, whatever you need. Michelle thought about her sister, about Alexie's constant criticism of her choices, her career in teaching instead of corporate America, her simple apartment instead of living beyond her means, her natural hair instead of expensive salon treatments. Thought about how Alexie had made it clear for years that Michelle's values were naive, that her life was small, that she was settling. And she thought about Ethan, about the way he listened when she talked, the way he valued her work with kids, the way he made her feel seen and appreciated and valued exactly as she was. I choose you, Michelle said, say. I choose this. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. Ethan's smile was radiant. Can I kiss you now? I thought you'd never ask. Their first kiss. In a corner booth of a West Village Italian restaurant over half-finished plates of pasta was everything a first kiss should be. Tentative and eager, sweet and promising. The beginning of something real. Neither of them saw the person at the bar taking a photo with their phone. One of Alexie's colleagues from Sterling Media Group having drinks after work. The photo was uploaded to Instagram within 30 seconds, tagged with Sterling's location and several mutual friends. Within 5 minutes, it had been screenshot and sent to Alexie's group chat. Isn't this your ex? And is that your sister? Alexie was in the middle of a work presentation when her phone started buzzing incessantly. She ignored it, focusing on the client pitch she was delivering. It wasn't until she got back to her desk 20 minutes later that she saw the messages, the photo, the comments. She stared at the image, at Michelle's face, radiant with happiness, at Ethan looking at her sister like she was the most precious thing in the world, at the intimacy in their body language, the obvious affection. This wasn't new. This wasn't a first date. This was established. Real. Alexie felt something cold and unfamiliar settle in her stomach. Not quite jealousy. She didn't want Ethan back, didn't regret rejecting him, but something else. Something that whispered, "What if you made a mistake?" She pushed the thought away, texted Michelle, "We need to talk. Call me." Michelle's response came an hour later. "I know, Sunday dinner. We'll explain everything then." Alexie had a very bad feeling about Sunday dinner. She had no idea just how bad it was about to get. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Alexie Palmer walked into Sterling Media Group at 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes earlier than usual. The office was already buzzing with nervous energy. The acquisition rumors had been confirmed over the weekend via an email from corporate, and now everyone was speculating about what it would mean. "I heard the new owner is some 32-year-old billionaire heir," Jasmine whispered as she and Alexie grabbed coffee in the break room. "Probably another tech bro who's going to gut the creative department and replace us all with AI," Tori added pessimistically. Alexie's mind was elsewhere. She was still processing the photo of Michelle and Ethan, still trying to reach her sister, who had ignored 4 phone calls and responded to 17 texts with only, "Sunday, we'll talk Sunday." At 9 a.m., all 347 Sterling Media Group employees were called to the main conference room on the 12th floor. It was standing room only, bodies packed in, the air thick with anxiety and speculation. The current CPO, Gerald Morrison's 4, looking simultaneously relieved and exhausted, stood at the front with the board members flanking him like a defeated army. "Thank you all for being here," Gerald began, his voice carrying the weight of surrender. "As you've likely heard, Sterling Media Group has been acquired by Harrington Industries. I'm pleased to introduce our new majority owner and incoming CEO. Please welcome Ethan Harrington." Alexie's blood turned to ice. Ethan walked in wearing a charcoal gray suit that fit him like it had been made specifically for his body, because it had. A white shirt with subtle blue pinstripes. A watch that Alexie recognized from a magazine article as a Patek Philippe worth more than her car. His hair was professionally styled, his presence commanding in a way Alexie had never seen. This wasn't the quiet IT guy who'd fumbled with a ring box. This was a man who'd been born to run companies, who'd been trained from childhood to command rooms full of powerful people. This was Ethan Harrington in his element. And when his eyes swept across the crowd and found Alexie Palmer standing near the back, his expression didn't change at all. No anger, no satisfaction, no recognition of their history, just the polite acknowledgement of an employee among hundreds. Somehow, that was worse than anything else. "Thank you, Gerald," Ethan said, his voice clear and confident. "And thank you all for being here. I know acquisitions can be unsettling, change is always uncomfortable, but I want to be clear about Harrington Industries' vision for Sterling Media Group." He clicked to the first slide of his presentation. A comprehensive transformation plan that was simultaneously impressive and terrifying. "We're not here to gut the company or eliminate jobs arbitrarily. We're here to build something exceptional. Sterling has incredible creative talent." His eyes swept across the room, and untapped potential in emerging markets. "Over the next 6 months, we'll be restructuring departments, investing in new technology, and creating opportunities for advancement based on merit and innovation." Another slide. Organizational charts showing new leadership structures. "I believe in promoting from within when possible. I also believe in accountability and excellence. If you're good at what you do, if you bring value and creativity and dedication, you'll thrive here. If you've been coasting or using this company as a paycheck while putting in minimal effort, this is your wake-up call." The room was dead silent. This wasn't a typical corporate acquisition speech full of vague reassurances. This was direct, honest, and slightly terrifying. My door is always open, Ethan continued. Well, and here he paused, and Alexie could have sworn his eyes found hers again for just a fraction of a second. Almost always. I welcome feedback, innovation, and bold ideas. What I won't tolerate is mediocrity, office politics, or people who value appearance over substance. That last phrase hit Alexie like a slap. The presentation continued for another 20 minutes. Detailed plans for each department. Timeline for changes. Q&A session where Ethan answered questions with a combination of business acumen and genuine vision that was actually impressive. Alexie hated how impressed she was. After the meeting, employees dispersed in clusters, whispering and speculating. Alexie tried to slip out quickly, but Ms. Palmer. His voice stopped her cold. She turned. Ethan was standing 10 feet away, flanked by 2 executive assistants holding tablets and looking efficient. My office, please, 10:15. I have a client call at... Reschedule it, Ethan said simply. Then, to his assistants, please compile the performance reviews for all senior marketing staff. I want to see 3 years of data. He walked away before Alexie could respond. Jasmine grabbed Alexie's arm. Girl, do you know him? Why does he want to meet with you specifically? It's complicated, Alexie managed. Complicated how? That's my ex, the one who proposed. Jasmine's jaw dropped. The IT guy, the broke loser? That's him? Apparently he was never actually broke. Oh my God, Alexie, I need to go, Alexie cut her off. I need to prepare for this meeting. She had exactly 37 minutes to figure out how to face the man she'd humiliated, who now controlled her entire career. At 10:14 a.m., Alexie stood outside the CEO's office, the corner suite that had been remodeled over the weekend, now featuring minimalist modern furniture, extensive bookshelves, and floor-to-ceiling windows with a view that stretched across the entire city. The nameplate on the door was new, Ethan Harrington, CEO. Alexie knocked at exactly 10:15. Come in. The office was intimidating. Everything in it screamed success, power, and old money. There were photos on the credenza. Ethan with various politicians and business leaders. Ethan at charity events. Ethan shaking hands with people Alexie recognized from magazine covers. And one photo that made her stomach drop. Ethan and Michelle, laughing together at what looked like a park, her head on his shoulder, both of them looking ridiculously happy. He had a photo of her sister in his office. Please sit, Ethan said, not looking up from the document he was reviewing. Alexie sat, crossed her legs. Tried to project a confidence she absolutely didn't feel. Finally, Ethan closed the folder and gave her his full attention. I want to establish some boundaries, he began. What happened between us 2 months ago is personal. What happens in this office is professional. I've reviewed your work. Your portfolio is strong. Your campaigns have good ROI. Your clients have positive feedback. Based purely on merit, you're a valuable employee. Alexie should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt somehow diminished, reduced to just another competent worker. However, Ethan continued, I need to know, can you separate personal from professional? Can you work here, report to me, and maintain appropriate boundaries? Of course, Alexie said, trying to keep her voice steady. Because if you can't, if this is going to be uncomfortable or create drama, I'd rather know now. I'll provide an excellent reference. I'll give you 3 months severance. You can leave with dignity and find something that's a better fit. No hard feelings. You want me to quit? Alexie felt anger flare. I want you to be honest with yourself, Ethan said calmly. Your boss is someone you rejected and insulted. Your sister is someone I'm in a serious relationship with. Those are facts. The question is whether you can handle those facts professionally or whether they'll compromise your work. And Michelle? Alexie couldn't help herself. That's not complicated for you? Dating your ex's sister? Ethan's expression softened in a way that hurt to see. Michelle is the kindest, most authentic person I've ever met. She saw me at my absolute lowest, thanks to you, actually, and chose compassion. We've spent the past 6 weeks getting to know each other honestly, without pretense or agenda. What we have is real. It's serious. And it has nothing to do with you beyond the fact that she happens to be your sister. She's my sister, and you rejected me, Ethan interrupted, his voice still calm but with steel underneath. You didn't just say no, Alexie. You publicly humiliated me. You called me a broke loser. You laughed at a ring that represented 3 generations of my family's love and commitment. You made it abundantly, explicitly clear that I wasn't good enough for you, that I would never be good enough. I didn't know. Exactly, Ethan cut her off. You didn't know, because in 8 months of dating, you never once asked about my family or my background or my actual goals. You saw a job title, a car, an apartment, and you made a judgment. You assessed my worth based entirely on external markers of success and found me lacking. He stood, walking to the window, his back to her. Do you know what Michelle asked me on our first coffee? She asked about my favorite book, about why I chose to volunteer at a literacy center, about what made me laugh. She wanted to know who I was as a person, not what I could provide. She saw value in kindness, in character, in authenticity, things that don't show up on a tax return. Alexie felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I'm not telling you this to hurt you, Ethan continued, turning back to face her. I'm telling you this so you understand. What I have with Michelle is real. It's not revenge against you or some scheme to hurt you, Keith. It's 2 people who connected genuinely and are choosing each other. And that has to be okay with you if you're going to work here. And if it's not okay? Alexie asked quietly. Then I'll help you find something else, Ethan said simply. I'm not going to fire you or sabotage you. I'm not petty, but I also won't apologize for building a life that makes me happy just because it makes you uncomfortable. The room was silent for a long moment. I can be professional, Alexie finally said. Are you sure? Yes. Ethan studied her face, then nodded. Okay, then let's discuss your current projects. I've reviewed the Thompson campaign and I have some thoughts. For the next 40 minutes, they discussed work, strategy, campaign performance, budget allocations, like 2 professionals who had no history beyond business. And somehow, that felt like the most devastating thing of all. When Alexie finally left his office, she felt hollowed out. She went directly to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and let herself cry for exactly 3 minutes. Then she fixed her makeup, straightened her shoulders, and went back to her desk. She had work to do, a career to maintain, a life to figure out. And on Sunday, she had to face her family and watch them accept her sister's relationship with the man she'd thrown away. Sunday couldn't possibly be worse than this. She was wrong. The karma is already hitting so hard, but we're not even close to done. If you're loving this revenge arc, do me a favor and share this video with someone who would appreciate this level of poetic justice. And stick around because the family dinner scene is coming up next, and it is absolutely brutal. You do not want to miss this. Sunday dinner at the Palmer house was a sacred tradition. Every week, without fail, the family gathered at Patricia and Marcus Palmer's home in Brooklyn, a beautiful brownstone they'd bought 30 years ago when the neighborhood was still affordable. The house smelled like home. Slow-cooked collard greens, mac and cheese made from scratch, cornbread cooling on the counter, and whatever protein Marcus had decided to master that week. Alexie arrived at 4:55 p.m., 5 minutes early for the first time in years. Her mother answered the door, and Alexie could immediately see the tension in Patricia's shoulders, the wariness in her eyes. Baby, Patricia said, hugging her oldest daughter. How are you holding up? I'm fine, Alexie lied. Alexie Palmer, I have known you for 28 years. Don't I'm fine me. Michelle told us about Ethan, about the company, about everything. She had no right. She had every right, Patricia interrupted firmly. She's your sister and she's about to bring a man to Sunday dinner who used to date you. Of course she told us. Now come inside and try to act like you have some home training. The house was warm, filled with the sounds and smells of Sunday. Marcus was in the kitchen, humming along to the Temptations while he checked on the ribs in the oven. Alexie girl, he greeted her warmly, pulling her into a hug. Your mama told you about our guest tonight? She did. And you're going to be civil? Because your mama and I didn't raise you to act ugly, regardless of the circumstances. I'll be civil, Alexie promised, though her stomach was churning. At 5:10 p.m. the doorbell rang. Alexie heard Michelle's laughter from the foyer, then a deeper male voice that made her hands clench. And then they were walking into the dining room, and Alexie was seeing them together for the first time in person. Michelle was radiant in a simple yellow sundress, her natural curls pulled back, minimal makeup, looking absolutely beautiful in the effortless way that had always made Alexie feel like she was trying too hard. Ethan was dressed casually in dark jeans and a button-down, holding a bouquet of flowers for Patricia and a bottle of wine for Marcus, looking comfortable and confident and devastatingly handsome in a way that made Alexie's chest ache. But it was the way he looked at Michelle, like she was the center of his universe, like everything else faded when she was in the room. That hurt most of all. Because he'd never looked at Alexie that way. Not once. "Mom, Dad," Michelle said, smiling. "This is Ethan Harrington. Ethan, these are my parents, Patricia and Marcus Palmer." "It's an honor to meet you both," Ethan said, shaking Marcus's hand firmly and presenting Patricia with the flowers. "Michelle talks about you constantly. Thank you for welcoming me into your home." "We're happy to have you," Patricia said warmly, and Alexie could see her mother was already charmed. "And of course, you know Alexie." "We've met," Ethan said, turning to Alexie with perfect politeness. "Hello, Alexie." "Ethan," she managed. The dinner was excruciating. Alexie watched her parents fall in love with Ethan in real time. Watched him help set the table without being asked. Watched him compliment Patricia's cooking with genuine enthusiasm. Watched him ask Marcus about his work as a civil engineer, actually listening to the answer and asking follow-up questions that showed he understood the technical details. "So Ethan," Marcus said over ribs and cornbread, "Michelle tells us you two met right after a difficult breakup." Alexie's hands tightened on her fork. "Yes, sir," Ethan said carefully. "Your daughter showed me incredible kindness during a really hard time. I'll always be grateful for that." Michelle squeezed his hand. Her enormous, beautiful engagement ring. Because yes, they'd gotten engaged, Michelle had told the family in a group text that morning, caught the light. It wasn't his grandmother's ring. This one was new, modern, with a center stone that had to be at least 2 carats, surrounded by smaller diamonds in a halo setting. It was stunning. It probably cost 6 months of Alexie's salary. "And the company?" Marcus continued. "Harrington Industries? That's your family business?" "4th generation," Ethan confirmed. "My great-grandfather started it during the Depression. My grandfather expanded internationally. My father took it into private equity. I'm trying to honor their legacy while building something sustainable for the future." "Michelle mentioned you volunteer?" Patricia asked. "Teaching adults to read?" Ethan's entire face lit up, genuinely lit up in a way that transformed him. "Every Saturday morning at Riverside Learning Center in Harlem. It's the best part of my week. Watching someone read their first full sentence or write their own name for the first time. There's nothing else like it. Actually, Michelle joined me last month, and the students loved her. She has this gift for making complex concepts accessible." He looked at Michelle when he said it, his eyes full of admiration and affection. Patricia reached over and squeezed Michelle's hand. The gesture was clear. "You chose well, baby girl." "How did you two actually get together?" Marcus asked. Michelle's been a little vague on the details. Michelle and Ethan exchanged a look. "I approached him at a coffee shop," Michelle said honestly. "He'd just been through something painful, and I wanted to apologize on behalf of the person who'd hurt him. We started talking, we became friends, and then somewhere along the way, friendship became more." "And you knew about his family, about the company?" Patricia asked. "Not at first," Michelle admitted. "And honestly, it didn't matter. The man I fell in love with is the one who volunteers every Saturday, who reads Steinbeck and makes terrible dad jokes, who listens when I talk about my students, who sees me, really sees me, and values who I am, not what I look like or what I can offer him. The Harrington Industries stuff is just context." Ethan brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. Alexie had to look away. "Well," Marcus said, raising his glass, "I have to say, young man, you seem like good people. Anyone who values my daughter for her character is all right in my book. Welcome to the family." They toasted, laughed, moved on to dessert. And through it all, Alexie sat quietly, watching her family embrace the man she'd rejected, watching him fit seamlessly into the space she'd always occupied as the favorite daughter. After dinner, Patricia asked Alexie to help with dishes. In the kitchen, away from the others, her mother turned to her with an expression that was part sympathy, part disappointment. "Baby, I know this is hard. Mom, please don't." "Let me finish," Patricia said firmly. "I know this is hard. I know it hurts to watch your sister with someone you used to date. But Alexie, you need to understand something. You didn't want that man. You made that abundantly clear. You humiliated him, insulted him, rejected him in the cruelest way possible. Michelle told us what happened at that coffee shop, what you said to him." Shame burned through Alexie's chest. "Mom, I didn't know he was—" "And that's exactly the problem," Patricia interrupted. "You didn't know because you didn't care to know. You judged that young man by his car and his apartment, and you found him lacking. Your father and I raised you better than that. We raised you to value character over capital, to see people for who they are, not what they have." "But I didn't know." "Exactly." Patricia's voice rose slightly. "You didn't know that he came from money because if you'd known, you would have said yes for all the wrong reasons. That ring he offered you? Michelle showed me a photo. It was beautiful. It had history and meaning and love behind it. But all you saw was the size of the diamond." Tears were streaming down Alexie's face now. "So you're okay with this? With her dating him?" "I'm more than okay with it," Patricia said, her voice softening. "I'm happy for her. That young man in there? He's kind and respectful, and he looks at your sister like she hung the moon. He volunteers his time. He asks about our lives. He listens. He values Michelle for exactly who she is. That's the kind of man I want for my daughters. Both of them." The implication hung in the air. Alexie had lost that chance. "Your sister didn't steal him from you," Patricia continued. "You threw him away. She just had the wisdom to see his value. And now you have a choice. You can be bitter and make this harder on everyone, or you can accept that some lessons are expensive and learn from this one." From the dining room, Alexie could hear laughter. Her father telling one of his terrible jokes. Ethan's warm chuckle, Michelle's delighted giggle. They sounded like a family. And Alexie was on the outside looking in. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. "Then you need to figure it out," Patricia said, not unkindly, "because that man is about to become your brother-in-law. He's going to be at every holiday, every family dinner, every birthday. He and Michelle are building a life together. And you, baby girl, need to decide if you're going to be part of this family's joy or if you're going to let your pride poison everything." It was the hardest truth Alexie had ever heard, but it was the truth nonetheless. Patricia Palmer just delivered the truth that Alexie needed to hear. That hit hard. Now I want to ask you, what would you do in Alexie's situation? Would you quit your job, skip family dinners, try to sabotage the relationship? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This channel is full of stories about karma, growth, and people learning expensive lessons. Hit that subscribe button right now if you're Team Michelle, or are you for Alexie? We're about to see Alexie's complete breakdown at a company gala. The weeks after that Sunday dinner were the longest of Alexie's life. At work, she had to see Ethan almost daily. Board meetings, department reviews, company events. And every interaction was professionally courteous and personally devastating. Because Ethan kept his word. He never treated her poorly, never used his position to punish her. In fact, he'd approved her promotion to senior creative director, a position she'd wanted for 2 years, which somehow made everything worse. She would have preferred anger, revenge, something that proved she still mattered to him. Instead, she got professionalism, polite distance. The emotional equivalent of being told she was just another employee among hundreds. At home, her phone lit up constantly with family group chat messages. "Michelle and Ethan are coming to my gallery opening. Aunt Diane. Can't wait to meet the new boyfriend at the reunion. Cousin Tasha. Your sister found a good one, Alexie. Uncle James, even her friends were divided." Jasmine and Tori still maintained that Alexie had done nothing wrong, that it was weird for Michelle to date her ex, that blood was supposed to be thicker than water. But Janelle, Michelle's roommate, who Alexie had known for years, had sent her a message that burned. You threw away a good man because he didn't match your Pinterest board version of success. Michelle saw his character. That's not betrayal, Alexie, that's wisdom. Alexie's dating life imploded completely. Every man she went out with felt wrong, too materialistic, too shallow, too much like the person she'd become. She went on a date with a hedge fund manager who spent the entire dinner talking about his car collection. Alexie excused herself after appetizers. She tried a second date with a lawyer who never asked her a single question about herself. She left before dessert. She even gave a chance to a doctor who seemed promising, until he made a dismissive comment about those people who waste their lives teaching, and Alexie found herself defending Michelle's career choice with a passion that surprised her. 3 months after the Sunday dinner, Sterling Media Group held its annual gala, a black tie event to celebrate the year's successes and raise money for literacy charities. Ethan had insisted on the charity component. All proceeds would go to community literacy programs. Of course they would. Alexie arrived alone, wearing a dress that cost 2 paychecks, feeling beautiful and empty. The ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, a live orchestra. The kind of event that would have made Alexie feel successful and important just months ago. Now it just felt hollow. She was making small talk with clients when Michelle and Ethan arrived. Michelle was wearing a midnight blue gown that fit her perfectly. Simple, elegant, understated in a way that made every other woman in the room look like they were trying too hard. Her natural curls were styled beautifully. She wore minimal jewelry except for the engagement ring that caught every light in the room. She looked like a woman in love, confident, happy, radiant. And Ethan looked at her the way every woman dreams of being looked at. Throughout the evening, Alexie watched them. Watched Ethan introduce Michelle to business associates and philanthropists with obvious pride. Watched Michelle charm everyone she met with genuine warmth. Watched them dance, slowly, intimately, lost in each other while hundreds of people swirled around them. At one point, Ethan took the microphone to thank everyone for supporting the literacy programs. These organizations change lives, he said, his voice carrying across the ballroom. They give people the tools to transform their own futures. Education is the greatest gift we can give, and I'm honored to support that mission. He looked directly at Michelle when he said it. And I'm especially grateful to the woman who reminded me why this work matters. Michelle Palmer, you inspire me every day. The room applauded. Michelle's eyes shimmered with happy tears. And Alexie felt something crack completely inside her chest. She excused herself and went to the bathroom, where she locked herself in a stall and let herself cry for the first time since this all began. Not delicate tears. Full, ugly sobs that made her makeup run and her breathing ragged. Because she finally understood what she'd lost. Not the money, though that hurt. Not the status, though that stung. But the chance to be loved the way Ethan loved Michelle. To be valued for who she was, rather than what she projected. To matter to someone beyond what she could offer them. She'd thrown away genuine love for the appearance of success. And in doing so, she'd lost both. When Alexie finally composed herself enough to leave the bathroom, she almost ran directly into Michelle. Her sister was touching up her own makeup, humming softly to herself. "Alexie," Michelle said, surprised. "Are you okay? You look—" "I'm fine," Alexie said automatically. "You're not fine, you've been crying." They stood there in the ornate bathroom, the sound of the gala muffled beyond the door, years of sisterhood and recent tension hanging between them. "I'm happy for you," Alexie said, and for the first time she meant it. "I really am. He's wonderful, and he loves you in a way that's real and deep, and I'm genuinely happy you found that." Michelle's eyes softened. "Thank you. That means a lot. But Michelle, I need you to know I'm struggling. Seeing you two together, having him as my boss, watching our family love him, it's hard, and I know that's my problem to deal with. I know I have no right to feel this way, but I'm trying." "I know," Michelle said gently, "and I appreciate you trying. I know this isn't easy, but Alexie, you're my sister. I love you." And I need you to hear this. Ethan and I aren't happening at you. We're not trying to hurt you or prove anything. We just found each other. And what we have is real. I know, Alexie whispered. I can see that. And honestly, that's the hardest part. Because I threw away something real and I didn't even realize it until it was too late. Michelle pulled her into a hug. Alexie resisted for a moment, then melted into it, holding her little sister while tears streamed down her face. I was so awful to him, Alexie said against Michelle's shoulder. At that coffee shop, I was cruel and shallow, and I said things that can never be taken back. I know, Michelle said. I was there at the next table. Alexie pulled back. You were there? At the next table, studying. I heard every word you said to him. That's why I went over to apologize. I was so ashamed of you, Alexie, so disappointed. That wasn't the sister I knew. I don't know who that person was, Alexie admitted. Looking back, I don't recognize myself. I was so focused on appearances and status and what people would think that I couldn't see what was real. And now? Michelle asked gently. Now I see it everywhere. In you two, in mom and dad, in the couples I used to envy who have less money but more joy. And I'm trying to figure out how to become someone different, someone better. Someone who values the right things. Michelle squeezed her hands. That's growth, Alexie. That's learning. It's painful, but it's necessary. Does he hate me? Alexie asked quietly. No, Michelle said. He doesn't hate you at all. He feels sad for you, I think. Sad that you missed out on what you could have had, but not angry. Ethan's not built that way. I really messed up, Alexie said. Yeah, Michelle agreed. You really did. But you're acknowledging it. You're growing from it. That's something. They stood there for another moment, two sisters navigating new territory. Come on, Michelle finally said. Let's fix your makeup. The gala isn't over yet, and you look beautiful in that dress. Don't let my happiness ruin your night. Your happiness isn't ruining anything, Alexie said. My choices did that, but I'm trying to make better ones now. They fixed their makeup together, side by side at the mirror, like they'd done 1,000 times growing up. When they returned to the ballroom, Ethan was talking with a group of board members. He caught Michelle's eye across the room and smiled, a smile so full of love and promise that Alexie had to look away. But this time, it wasn't from bitterness. It was from recognition of something she'd once had the chance to have and had thrown away through her own shallow judgment. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Alexie went home early, kicked off her expensive shoes, and sat on her couch in her designer dress, thinking about everything she'd learned. About value and worth, about love and status, about the difference between what looks good and what actually is good. It was the most painful education of her life. But maybe, just maybe, it was the most important one too. This is hitting different now, isn't it? Alexie is finally understanding what she lost. But the wedding is still coming, and you need to see how this all resolves. Before we get there, though, have you hit that like button and subscribed yet? If this story is making you feel something, that like really helps get it to more people. And drop a comment telling me, do you think Alexie deserves a happy ending, or is this karma well served? The wedding scene is next. The wedding was in spring when Central Park came alive with cherry blossoms and the whole city felt like it was celebrating new beginnings. Michelle and Ethan had chosen the Loeb Boathouse, elegant but not ostentatious, beautiful but not excessive. The kind of venue that felt special without trying to prove anything. It was perfect for them. Alexie stood in the bridal suite, helping Michelle into her dress. It was a simple A-line gown with delicate lace sleeves, classic and timeless rather than trendy. Michelle looked absolutely radiant. Thank you for being here, Michelle said as Alexie fastened the last button. I know this isn't easy for you. I wouldn't miss it, Alexie said honestly. You're my sister, and he's really good for you, Michelle. I can see how happy you are. I am, Michelle smiled. Genuinely, completely happy. Ethan is everything I didn't know I was looking for. He's kind and funny, and he challenges me to be better while loving me exactly as I am. Alexie felt the familiar ache, but pushed through it. That's what love should be. It is, Michelle agreed. Then gently, you'll find it too, when you're ready, when you're looking for the right things. I'm trying, Alexie said. I'm dating differently now, asking different questions, valuing different things. It's slow, but I'm learning. That's all any of us can do, Michelle said. The ceremony was beautiful. Alexie sat in the third row with her parents, watching her little sister marry the man who could have been hers if she'd just had the wisdom to see past surfaces. Ethan cried during his vows, actual tears streaming down his face as he promised to love Michelle through everything. To value her character above all else. To build a life together based on mutual respect and genuine partnership. You saw me when I was at my lowest, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. You chose kindness when others chose judgment. You valued who I was over what I could give you. And every day since then, you've shown me what real love looks like. Michelle Palmer, you are my best friend, my partner, my home. I promise to spend every day of my life trying to deserve the gift of your love. There wasn't a dry eye in the venue. Michelle's vows were equally beautiful. About finding love when she wasn't looking for it. About choosing kindness and having it returned 1,000-fold. About building a life based on shared values rather than shared accounts. When they were pronounced husband and wife, the kiss was tender and deep and full of promise. The reception was joyful. Dancing, laughter, toasts from friends and family. Ethan's father, Richard Harrington, gave a speech about his son's character. About the 2-year test and how Ethan had passed with flying colors. About how Michelle had seen the man beneath the circumstances and chosen him for exactly the right reasons. To my new daughter-in-law, Richard raised his glass. Thank you for seeing my son's heart. Welcome to the family. Marcus Palmer spoke next, his voice thick with emotion. My baby girl has always had wisdom beyond her years. She sees the best in people. She values character and kindness and truth. Ethan, son, you better take care of her, but something tells me you will. The dancing started. First dance, father-daughter dance, mother-son dance. Alexie watched it all from her table, nursing a glass of champagne and trying to be genuinely happy rather than performatively so. Halfway through the reception, Ethan approached her table. Alexie, can we talk? Just for a minute. They stepped out onto the terrace overlooking the lake. Spring evening air, the sound of celebration muffled behind them. I wanted to thank you, Ethan said. Alexie was confused. For what? For rejecting me, he said simply. I mean that. If you'd said yes that day in the coffee shop, I would have married someone who loved the idea of me but not the reality. Someone who valued what I could provide but not who I actually was. And I would have missed out on Michelle, on the kind of love I didn't even know existed. Alexie felt tears prick her eyes. So, thank you, Ethan continued, for being exactly who you were, for showing me what I didn't want, for leading me in the strangest way possible to what I did want. I was cruel to you, Alexie said quietly. At that cafe, the things I said were honest, Ethan finished. Brutally, painfully honest. And yes, it hurt. But Alexie, you weren't wrong to have standards. You were just measuring the wrong things. And that's something you're learning now, right? Trying to, Alexie admitted. It's harder than I thought. Unlearning all the things I thought mattered. Relearning what actually does. It's a lifelong process, Ethan said. But you're doing it. Michelle tells me you're different now, more thoughtful, more intentional. That's growth. I cost myself you, Alexie said, yeet. And Michelle, and the life I could have had. That's an expensive lesson. Maybe, Ethan said, eh? But you know what? I don't think we would have worked, Alexie. Not really. Because I need someone who sees me, really sees me, without the money and the name and the empire. And at that point in your life, you couldn't do that. Maybe you can now, Hita. Maybe you'll find someone you can do that for. But it was never going to be me. The truth of it settled over Alexie like a heavy blanket. I'm really happy for you both, she said. I mean that. Michelle is perfect for you. She really is, Ethan smiled. And Alexie, you're going to be okay. You're learning and growing and becoming someone who values the right things. That's huge. Give yourself credit for that. He hugged her, brief, brotherly, appropriate, and then went back inside to his bride. Alexie stayed on the terrace a little longer, watching the lights reflect on the lake. She thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago. Shallow, materialistic, focused on all the wrong things. And she thought about the woman she was becoming. Still flawed, still learning, but trying. It wasn't redemption, exactly. But it was a start. Ethan just thanked Alexie for rejecting him. The growth, the maturity, the perspective. If you're moved by this redemption arc, make sure you're subscribed because I have so many more stories about second chances, hard lessons, and people becoming better versions of themselves. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The epilogue is coming up next, and you won't want to miss how Alexie's story ends 1 year later. A year after the wedding, Alexie Palmer sat in a coffee shop, not common grounds, she couldn't bring herself to go back there, reviewing a book proposal. She'd left Sterling Media Group 6 months ago. Not because Ethan had made it uncomfortable, but because she needed a fresh start. Needed to build something that was hers, based on her own merit, without the shadow of her past mistakes. She'd started her own boutique marketing consultancy, specializing in nonprofits and educational organizations. The irony wasn't lost on her. Spending her days helping literacy programs and community centers tell their stories, it paid less than Sterling had. Her apartment was smaller, her wardrobe was simpler, but she was happier. Her phone buzzed, a text from Michelle. "Sunday dinner at Mom and Dad's. Ethan and I have news. See you there?" Alexie smiled and typed back, "Wouldn't miss it." Things with her sister were better now. Not perfect. There was still sometimes awkwardness, still moments when Alexie had to actively choose joy over envy, but better. She'd learned to genuinely celebrate Michelle's happiness, to value their sisterhood over her own wounded pride. "Is this seat taken?" Alexie looked up to find a man standing at her table. Late 30s, warm brown eyes, wearing jeans and a teaching conference t-shirt, holding a book of Langston Hughes poetry. "It's all yours," she said. "Thanks. I'm David, by the way. David Kane. I teach high school English at the public school around the corner." Alexie Palmer, marketing consultant. They chatted for a few minutes about books and poetry and the importance of arts education. David mentioned he volunteered at a community theater program on weekends. "That's really cool," Alexie said, meaning it. "What made you get involved in that?" "I believe in giving back," David said simply. "And theater saved my life when I was a kid. I want to provide that for others." Something about his answer, the authenticity, the values, the focus on character over credentials, made Alexie smile. "Would you want to grab coffee sometime?" she asked. "Actually talk, not just small talk between strangers in a cafe?" David smiled. "I'd really like that." They exchanged numbers, made plans for Saturday. As David walked away, Alexie felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not because David might be rich or successful or impressive by her old standards, but because he seemed kind, genuine, focused on things that mattered, and she was finally in a place to value that. Sunday dinner at the Palmer house was warm and joyful. Michelle and Ethan arrived with their news. Michelle was pregnant, due in 6 months. The family erupted in celebration. Patricia cried. Marcus pulled out the good champagne. Plans were immediately made for nurseries and baby showers and the next chapter of the Palmer-Harrington family. Alexie hugged her sister tightly. "I'm so happy for you," she said. "You're going to be an amazing mom." "And you're going to be an amazing aunt," Michelle responded. Later, over dessert, Alexie found herself alone in the kitchen with Ethan while they cleaned up. "I met someone," Alexie said. "See, nothing serious yet, just coffee, but he seems good, real." "That's wonderful," Ethan said, and he sounded like he meant it. "What does he do?" "He's a high school English teacher, volunteers at a community theater program." Ethan smiled. "Sounds like a good man. I hope it works out." "Me too," Alexie said. "And Ethan, thank you for the job reference when I left Sterling, for being professional and kind even when I didn't deserve it, for showing me, through example, what it looks like to be a good person. You're welcome, Ethan said. Ha. But Alexie, you're giving me too much credit. You did the work of changing yourself. That's all you. They stood there for a moment, two people whose lives had been tangled by one cruel rejection and one sister's compassion, now finding peace on the other side of it all. I really am sorry, Alexie said quietly, for what I said at that cafe, for how I treated you. You deserved so much better. I know, Ethan said, and I forgave you a long time ago. The question is, have you forgiven yourself? Alexie thought about it, about the woman she'd been and the woman she was becoming. I'm working on it, she said finally. That's all any of us can do, Ethan replied. The evening ended with laughter and plans and family love. Alexie drove home through the city lights, thinking about second chances and hard lessons and the slow, painful process of becoming better. She thought about Ethan's grandmother's ring, the one she'd rejected, the one that now sat in a safety deposit box waiting for the next generation of Harrington love. She thought about Michelle's radiant happiness and the baby who would be born into a family built on genuine love and shared values. And she thought about David Kane and the possibility of building something real, something based on who people were rather than what they had. Alexie Palmer had learned the most expensive lesson of her life, but she'd learned it. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth something after all. We're almost at the end of Alexie's journey, but before we wrap up, I need you to do 3 things. First, make sure you've subscribed to this channel. Hit that button right now. Second, smash that notification bell so you never miss a story. And third, tell me in the comments, what's the most expensive lesson you've ever learned? Have you ever judged someone for the wrong reasons and regretted it? This community is amazing, and I love reading your stories. Let's finish this. Sometimes the biggest mistakes become the best teachers. Alexie Palmer rejected a good man because he didn't meet her superficial standards. She lost him to her sister, lost her family's respect, lost her peace of mind. But in losing everything she thought she wanted, she found something more valuable: the wisdom to know what actually matters. Love isn't about price tags or appearances. It's about character and kindness and choosing each other when the world says you're not enough. Ethan Harrington taught Alexie that lesson through rejection. Michelle Palmer taught it through example. And Alexie? She's still learning, but at least now she's learning the right things. She's dating a high school English teacher who volunteers at community theaters. She's running a consultancy that helps nonprofits instead of chasing corporate prestige. She's showing up to family dinners and genuinely celebrating her sister's joy. She's becoming someone who values substance over surface, character over credentials, authenticity over appearance. It took losing everything to learn what mattered. It took watching her sister wear the ring that could have been hers. It took working for the man she'd called a broke loser. It took her family choosing someone else's son over their own daughter's pride. But she learned, and that, in the end, might be the greatest gift of all. Because Alexie Palmer finally understands, the most valuable things in life can't be bought, can't be photographed for Instagram, can't be measured in carats or square footage or luxury brands. They can only be earned through kindness, built through character, and kept through choosing the right things and the right people, for the right reasons. She rejected a proposal in a coffee shop, and it cost her everything, but it also taught her everything. And now, 1 year later, sitting across from a kind teacher who volunteers his weekends to help kids discover theater, Alexie Palmer finally knows what it feels like to value someone for who they are. Not what they have, not what they can give her, but who they are at their core. It's a lesson that cost her a billionaire husband, a perfect wedding, and the life she thought she wanted. But it's a lesson that might just lead her to the life she actually needs. And sometimes, that's worth more than all the diamonds in the world. So that's Alexie's story. From cruel rejection to painful growth to finally learning what actually matters. What did you think? Do you believe people can change? Do you think Alexie deserved her happy ending with David? Or should karma have hit even harder? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear what you think. Make sure you drop a comment telling me, what lesson have you learned the hard way? I read every single comment and I love hearing your stories. Remember, sometimes the biggest mistakes become the best teachers. Choose wisely, choose kindly, and always look deeper than the surface. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next story. This is your reminder that karma is real, growth is possible, and it's never too late to become a better version of yourself. And in all, always treat people right 'cause you never know. I'll see you next time.